The legal action initiated by former Formula One driver Felipe Massa against the sport's governing bodies and commercial rights holders represents a significant challenge to the finality of the 2008 World Championship results. The core of the dispute centers on the outcome of the 2008 season, which saw Lewis Hamilton secure the title by a single point over Massa. This narrow margin of victory is central to Massa's claim, as the points lost in a single race, the Singapore Grand Prix, were enough to alter the championship result. The final race in Brazil saw Hamilton secure the necessary fifth-place finish on the final corner of the final lap to clinch the title. This final moment underscores the razor-thin margin that separated the two drivers, making the points lost in Singapore critically important to the overall outcome. Massa's lawsuit, filed in the High Court in London, targets the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, Formula One management, and former F1 chief executive Bernie Ecclestone. The claim seeks a reported $82 million in damages, asserting that a cover-up by the sport's former leadership regarding the events of the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix cost Massa the championship title. The legal team's focus is on the alleged failure of the governing bodies to act on information they possessed at the time, which they argue constitutes a breach of duty. The case is being closely monitored as it tests the legal limits of challenging historical sporting outcomes. The foundation of the legal challenge is the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, an event that later became known as the Crashgate scandal. The race was marred by a deliberate incident involving the Renault team, which forms the basis of Massa's claim of an unfair championship outcome. On lap 14 of the race, Renault driver Nelson Piquet Jr. intentionally crashed his car into the wall at turn 17. This action was later proven to have been carried out under the instruction of his team principal, Flavio Briatore, and chief engineer Pat Simons. The explicit purpose of the crash was to trigger a safety car period, which would strategically benefit Piquet's teammate. Piquet's teammate, Fernando Alonso, had made an early pit stop just before the crash. The safety car deployment allowed Alonso to cycle to the front of the field as other cars pitted under the safety car conditions. Felipe Massa was leading the race at the time of the incident. The safety car period forced him to pit, and during the stop, the Ferrari team made a critical error, releasing him with the fuel hose still attached. This mistake resulted in a drive-through penalty, causing Massa to finish the race outside the points in 13th position. The loss of points from this race is the direct link to the championship outcome. The difference between winning the title and finishing second was a single point. Had the results of the Singapore Grand Prix been annulled, which Massa's team argues should have happened under the rules, Massa would have been the 2008 world champion. The annulment of the race results is the specific remedy sought by Massa's legal team. The scandal was officially exposed in 2009, leading to sanctions against the Renault team, including the disqualification of the team and lifetime bans for Briatore and Simons. However, the FIA did not annul the race results, citing the long-standing legal principle that championship results are considered final after the season-ending prize-giving ceremony. This principle of finality is the central point of contention in the current lawsuit. Massa's legal argument is based on the assertion that the FIA and FOM were aware of the deliberate nature of the crash during the 2008 season, but chose to conceal the information from the public and the competitors. The lawsuit was directly triggered by a 2023 interview in which former F1 boss Bernie Ecclestone stated that he and former FIA president Max Mosley knew about the incident during the 2008 season, but decided not to act. Ecclestone's public comments provided the basis for Massa's legal team to argue that new evidence had emerged, allowing them to challenge the finality of the results. Massa's lawyers claim that the FIA breached its own regulations, specifically those governing the prompt investigation of serious incidents, by failing to act immediately on the information they possessed. This failure, they argue, constitutes a breach of contract and a breach of duty of care to the competitors. The legal team alleges that the governing bodies and individuals deliberately conspired together to conceal the truth, which directly impacted the championship outcome and Massa's career. The claim is focused on the actions of the governing bodies and their former leaders, not on the drivers involved in the championship battle. The defendants, F1, the FIA, and Bernie Ecclestone, have mounted a robust defence seeking to have the case dismissed before it reaches a full trial. Their primary argument is that the claim is time-barred, meaning the legal time limit for challenging the 2008 results has long expired. They argue that the principle of finality in championship results, a cornerstone of sporting governance, must be upheld to maintain the integrity and historical record of the sport. The defendants contend that allowing the case to proceed would set a dangerous precedent, potentially opening the door to challenges of other historical sporting outcomes. A significant three-day hearing took place in late 2025, where lawyers for both sides presented detailed arguments on whether the case should be allowed to proceed to a full trial. The defendants' legal teams argued that the case should be thrown out, while Massa's team countered that the alleged fraud and cover-up negate the time bar defence. Following this hearing, the presiding judge has reserved judgment. This means a decision on whether the case will be dismissed or allowed to move forward is currently pending. The outcome of this preliminary ruling is crucial, as a dismissal would end Massa's legal challenge, while a decision to proceed would escalate the case significantly. It is important to note that Lewis Hamilton is not a defendant in the case. However, as the current holder of the 2008 title, the outcome of the lawsuit has direct implications for his first world championship. Massa's legal action is focused on the alleged failures of the governing bodies and former F1 leadership, not on Hamilton's performance or conduct. The defendants argue that reopening the case would set a dangerous precedent, potentially leading to challenges of other historical results and undermining the authority of the FIA. The judge's upcoming decision will determine whether the legal challenge to the 2008 World Championship will continue to a full trial, a process that would require extensive disclosure of internal documents and communications from the time, potentially revealing further details about the decision-making process in 2008 and 2009. The case is a test of whether the sport's legal framework can accommodate a claim of historical fraud. The financial claim of £64 million, $82 million, represents the estimated lost earnings, sponsorship opportunities, and career value Massa attributes to being denied the World Championship title. This figure is based on expert analysis of the financial difference between being a world champion and a runner-up in Formula One. The damages sought are a key component of the legal action, reflecting the perceived scale of the injustice. The F1 community now awaits the court's decision, which will have significant ramifications for the historical record and the legal precedents governing the sport. The case highlights the tension between sporting integrity and the legal finality of championship results. Massa's current action is an attempt to use new evidence, Ecclestone's admission, to reopen the matter and challenge the finality of the 2008 season. The final decision on whether the case proceeds to a full trial will be a landmark moment for Formula One's governance and history, potentially redefining the scope of historical challenges in the sport. Should the court rule in Massa's favour, it would create a new legal pathway for challenging historical sporting outcomes where evidence of fraud and cover-up emerges years later. Conversely, a dismissal would reinforce the principle of finality. The outcome will set a precedent for how F1 handles its past,